Hey everyone, if all goes as planned, you should hear me, see me, something. I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I'm gonna make sure I can see and hear everybody, or you can see me, I should say. All right, I'm gonna have I have a separate screen with the chat box going because it can be a little confusing to do on the same screen. Looks like a bunch of folks here. Awesome. Hope everyone's doing well. We got some visitors from all around the world here. Just quickly, one or two people let me know if you can hear me okay, that the volume's all right on the microphone. I was messing with the levels before. Oh, look at that. It's closed captioning me. That's pretty cool. So we got some folks from the UK and Washington and New York, Texas, Australia. Oh, that's pretty cool. Man, Australia, it's wild to think about. You're all the way in Australia and we're hanging out on YouTube. It's bizarre. So, like I said, hopefully everyone can hear me. Sounds like everyone. We got somebody saying there's echo, but that could be something on your end. Sounds like everyone else is hearing me good, but awesome. Sweet. 3 or 4 people saying that they can hear me. That's great. So, hello everybody. Welcome to our little happy hour here. I'm assuming you got here via my email or tweet, but just as a refresher, what I wanted to do today is, I guess I had sort of a not really a formal agenda. I know the post or the video and the post that I published last week, running through my design process, got quite a bit of traction, so I figured it'd be a good opportunity, and of course, with Volume 1 being enrollment opening for Volume 1, which is all about presentation techniques in Revit, opening tomorrow, I thought it was kind of good timing to hold a little Q&A session, and we can run through, we can expand on some things from the tutorials. I guess just answer any general questions that you guys have had. I got a few questions via the comments of the tutorial and emails that I'll start with, but for those of you hanging out here with me right now live, feel free to ask some questions in the chat box. If it goes too fast, I'm going to try my best to keep up with some of your questions. There is quite a bit of delay. It's like a 10 to 15 second delay from what I'm saying to what you guys are seeing and hearing. So bear with me when it comes down to the Q&A. I'm sorry, I just saw a bunch of little... Awesome. It sounds like everyone's hearing me good, which is great. Hey, Khaled from Saudi Arabia. How cool is that? In Philippines? Wow. This is nuts. Very cool. Okay. All right. So the first thing I'll do is, I guess again, try to ask some questions if there's anything glaring, especially that came up around the idea of my design process, presentation techniques, the Volume 1 video series, you name it. It's open for game. Try to keep it in that general idea. But what I'll do first is, one of the questions I actually got a couple emails and some comments on the YouTube video about walking through some of my first of all, walking through my sketchbook. I guess people liked seeing that one page of the sketchbook, which is kind of funny, just because it's a Revit blog, but people were very interested in that. So I figured I'd actually flip through a couple of those pages that maybe I didn't show in the video, and then some of the pens and pencils I used. Again, who knew that was what people would focus on, but I know myself as an architect and someone who likes to draw, I also like to see what other people use for mediums. So what I'll do first is I'll run through 2 of my sketchbooks that I have right here. So we'll start with probably the most common sketchbook around, which is the Moleskine. I'm sure everyone out there, including myself, has various versions of these. And this one actually, I go through these pretty quickly, but I do like the size of this. I think this is the 5 by 9, 6 by 9. I forgot what size they, but I think you get the idea. And so this sketchbook actually is I use this a lot for the blog and video content. And so what you'll notice in this one, as I flip through a couple pages, is that there are some drawings, and so I'm not really sure how this is going to show. Let me pull open and see here. Well, actually, it shows pretty good. So, I've got plenty of drawings in there. And that was actually a mud room for when I moved into my house. You can see a few more drawings there. This one's going to have a lot more text, though. This is much more heavy on text. So there's some notes for some client meetings, different projects, designs. Actually, this one here, this was one of the very first content plans and release information for DIY Dynamo. And so you can see I use different things there. And so the main medium I'm using for this, here's some trace. So you can see there's a hand sketch of a floor plan and some trace going through some different options. I like to just sort of tape things in and overlay and go through it, but it's just a nice size to carry around. And if I flip through a few more, you'll probably see, I have no idea if you're seeing this right now, but you'll probably see a bunch of different things. But this one's there's a lot of text. A lot of text in these books, and so what I'm typically using for as far as pens and pencils for this is sort of my three main black and white monochromatic pens and pencils, or I guess pens, because I don't really use pencils all that much in that book. But the classic Uniball Vision Fine Gel Pen. And so for those of you familiar with this pen, I like this one a lot for really, really quick sketching and writing. It bleeds out pretty quickly, and it forces you kind of draw real fast. And it also smudges, so it kind of forces you to think about what you're doing and where you're going. But I really like the way, especially on trace too, this one, and I apologize for my dog barking, and you may hear my little buddy Jacob making some noises in the background. This is live, and I am home, so it is what it is. I see a bunch of chats too. I'll read you guys' chats in a second. But this pen is like one of my go-tos. On trace, it looks great. It's got, if you go fast, it kind of makes a thinner line. If you go slow, it kind of makes a thicker line. But it's just my quick get things done pen. And then the finer pen, so doing more detailed and drawing stuff and trying to get a finer line, is the Sharpie pen. And this is the Sharpie pen. I don't even know if there's a fine version of it. Yeah, fine black. This one's actually really, really nice looking. It's got a matte black finish. I got this on Amazon, but the whole thing is black. I really like it. And so this one has got a really, really fine tip, and that's what I'll do more of the detailed sort of drawings with. And then, of course, the last but not least, again, this is probably a staple in the architecture community, the Pentel Sign Pen. And again, I'm typically using black for all of them. If you want to get some colors, there's red, there's blues, all kinds of stuff. But again, this is the Pentel Sign Pen, and this is great for outlining, shading, all kinds of nice different line types. And so those are kind of the three. If I had to choose, 3 pens and a notebook to grab with me anywhere I go to sort of be portable, these are kind of the 3 that I go with. All right, so before I jump into the other stuff, I just want to take a look. Looks like you guys are chit-chatting about... Oh, thanks for telling... These are telling Jeremiah how to turn on captions. Apparently I had it turned on and I didn't realize it, but that's all right. All right. A few comments. Yeah, Moleskine paper bleeds. If you're using markers and pens, you're kind of going to expect some bleeding. This one's not too bad. You could see I'm writing on front and back, and only every once in a while am I getting some bleed there if I'm using heavier markers. I don't even know if that's on camera, but for the most part, it's not too bad. You get used to it a little bit. If you don't want bleeding, obviously you have to go with thicker paper, but it is what it is. So then, so that's kind of my number one. I also have some smaller notebooks. I don't know if I have any here. Let's see. I don't have any with me. I have some smaller spiral bound notebooks that are like field notes. Those are kind of nice. Then we can talk about the Strathmore toned. And so this is the one that I showed in the tutorial video. And like I said, this is something that's pull out that piece of trace. There's a trace for you. So this is something that I kind of got into this year, and I think Eric Reinhold for that, just because he showed a bunch of cool sketches that he did in the tone tan paper, and I really enjoyed it, so I decided to try it out as a medium. And so it looks like some people are talking about what pens they use, which is awesome. I'll have to check some of those out. Cool. Currently using the Pentel Tradio stylo pen. Oh, that sounds interesting. I'll have to check it out. Very cool. And then actually, there's a question. This is kind of interesting, asking about the iPad and the Apple Pen. So I used to be an avid iPad user. I got it from the very first iPad on. In the last year or two, for whatever reason, I think mainly because I jumped into an Ultrabook, a smaller laptop that had the ability to run some of these real-time rendering engines like Lumio and Enscape. I stopped. I actually didn't buy an iPad. I also had this iPhone Plus, the 7 Plus. So the thing is freaking gigantic, anyways. But recently, I think it was one of their, maybe Amazon Prime Day or something like that. They had a pretty good deal on the iPad, so I decided to just buy one again, just to sort of get back into it. And I did buy the Apple Pen because I remember when I had an iPad, I went through thousands of styluses back then. I was using it a lot for notes and drawing, and it was really hard to find one that was really, really nice. I think I settled on one or two that were pretty nice. This was probably 5-6 years ago. And I tried the Apple Pen out a little bit. I haven't honestly gotten too into it yet, so maybe it's worth digging into a little more and trying out. But I have it. I just haven't got enough into it to confidently talk about it. So back to the Strathmore tone paper. So this notebook's not too full. Like I said, I've just sort of getting into it. So the very first page I created here, I was drawing some stuff. Some of it was stuff that I've designed. I was just testing some things out. This is an Olsen Kundig project. For those of you that are familiar, I think it's the chicken coop or something like that. I was drawing the door. I was drawing some sketches that Tom Kundig drew in his book, just to sort of get the idea and the feel for the pens, and the whole idea of white on sketching is so cool. It's just it adds this different layer to it. So here's just a little house that I was drawing for a specific project, trying out some of the white gel pens. And I also use this, I'll pull it up in a second, this marker that the color, kind of like a yellow ochre, an orange, burnt orange color that looks real nice. Again, continuing the same house project, sort of working through some ideas, some wall sections. I guess I use this to lay out some email plans. So this is trying to help me with some of the emails that you guys get, trying to figure out to make sure, for those of you that don't know, it can be a little complicated to try and organize all these various email lists and making sure that you guys are getting real quality content. This one was kind of cool. I was working through an island design for a project, so just trying out some sketches of this island that flips up. And you can see there's a plan, there's a couple axons, there's a section here. I'll try and move that a little closer. I don't know if it's gonna filter, but and then we start getting into some of the stuff from Stilted Rooms. So here's some of the mid-level sketches, some of the final sketches. You guys saw these pages, so pretty cool. And then the pens I use for that, real quickly, these three, the same that I just talked about, I also use on the tone paper. The pen I was talking about, or the marker I was talking about, is a Prismacolor burnt ochre. I was close. I said burnt orange and yellow ochre. And so I do have various brands of markers that I've collected over the years. A lot of them from like architects that were retiring in my firm or in the firm I worked for or something like that. But this is a really cool color on the tone tan, as you saw some from the sketches. A few other just grays, basic gray. Oh, we have a visitor. Hey, bud. Oh, excuse me, Charlie. Oh. Okay, well, hello, everybody. I know we were just talking about pens and markers, but I wanted everyone to to say hello to my son. This is Jacob. Say hi, Jacob. Oh, he's pointing at all the comments. He's enjoying all your comments. We're talking about markers and pens. Yeah? I figured he would make an appearance because he's got to go to bed soon, so I wanted to say hi to him. Right? He also likes smashing the keyboard and touching the microphone. All right. Well, say goodnight, Jacob. All right, everyone, we'll be right back. Hold on a second. Hey, bud. Oh, excuse me. See you later, bud. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm sorry, where was I? So that's Jacob. That's my boy. If you hear any crying or yelling or happy cries in the background, that's why. So I was just talking a little bit about my basic gray. So this one, I have a couple grays. And then last but not least, because we're working with the tone paper, this guy right here is just a white gel pen. This one's called the Jelly Roll. I'm not a huge fan of it, honestly. I bought a package of them. If you guys have any ideas or any thoughts on nicer white gel pens to use on the tone paper, this guy has some issues with going over other pen types, and I gotta smack it down a lot. And then last but not least, just a simple white color pencil. So anyways, I know I got quite a few questions about that, so I figured I would run through all that stuff. I hope that was kind of cool and valuable. I know this is the Revit Kid channel, but you know, if you ask the question, I'll answer it. So let me just dig through the chat real quick and see if there's any other questions. So Lindsay is asking about bringing topo into Revit. A couple questions about rendering software. Let's see. That's about it right now. All right, so when it comes to, let's see, what can we talk? So bringing topo into Revit is a little off topic. I know if you see my screen here, let me just show the screen. I am showing this topo here, and there's a couple different ways that you can do it. I have some pretty in-depth videos for topo in Revit, and there's actually a video on my YouTube channel here from, I don't even know how long ago, many years ago. So let me just pull it up so you can see. One of the cool things about it, if you're bringing in CAD files that have three-dimensional contours, it becomes extremely easy. I mean, all you've got to do is import the CAD file, create your site, and then say create from import, and you just click it, and it's basically done. But a lot of times we don't have those CAD files, so what we have to do is we have to bring in an image and then draw those freaking dots, right? Which is, if you've ever done it for a big site, it can be a pain in the butt. You're sitting there, you're click, all these dots, you know. So what I did is I found a program called AutoClicker, which was developed for a video game software. So what it does is you set a certain number of clicks. So if you say 150 milliseconds or something like that, it's going to click every 150 milliseconds, and then you sit there and trace. So instead of just showing that, what I'll do is I'll also post a tutorial right now on the YouTube stream. So here's the tutorial for you guys. You can check it out. But the software is pretty simple. I don't know if I have it actually installed on here. Let me see. I do. Okay, so maybe I'll just quickly show you since you asked the question. So if you have like a GIS image of contours, or you downloaded or you have a site plan maybe that's to scale and no other information, what you do is you bring that images in and you scale it. In Google Earth, same thing. I mean, as long as you have contour information, that's what you would need. So I'll just quickly go through it since you did ask. So you ask and I shall receive. Again, feel free to ask questions. I'm going to try and keep up with everything. So I just created a new file, and I'm going to quickly grab a map from somewhere. So I'm going to look for Town of Newtown GIS. So I'm just going to look for a quick GIS map of Newtown, Connecticut, of a specific site. Doesn't really matter where. Let me just zoom in somewhere near I-84. All right, so I'm just zooming into a site. A lot of towns, a lot of cities have GIS now. So for those of you who aren't familiar with how to get this information, just check your town and Google, whatever town you're in, GIS or something like that. And then I just turn contours on, and I'm just going to snip a site here. So I'm just using my snip tool, making it simple. The problem with this one is there is no graphic scale, so we're going to have to fudge the scale a little, but that's okay. So I'm going to save this to my desktop as site. Jump into Revit. I'm in my site plan view in Revit. I'm going to insert the image, so just insert image. Go to my desktop, select the site, and place it. Okay, so now typically you'd want to have some sort of a graphic scale, but what I'm going to use is you could see the property lines have numbers on them. So I'm going to select my image. I'm going to type RE, which is scale based on a reference. I'm going to click my two edges here, or my distance here, which is actually 203.19 feet. But you can see as I'm clicking and marking the reference distance, it's 114. So I'm going to click, and then I'm going to type in 203.19. Okay, so you have to click scale, click your reference dimension, and type in what you want it to be. Okay, so now we have some contours. We don't have a ton of labels here, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to massing and site. I'm going to create a topo surface. And now normally what you'd have to do is you would type in your dimensions. So if it's 359 feet, 359 feet, which I'm typing in the option bar, you'd have to click, and you'd have to click. Oh, this view doesn't, it's probably only up to 200 feet, right? Of course. Let's check it. My view range, I'm going to do 400 feet. Okay, let's go back to topo surface, place point, 359. And normally you'd have to click, right? With auto clicker, so let's say we're going to go now up to 360. If I run auto clicker, which again is in that blog post that I just linked, what it does is it says every 100 milliseconds I'm going to click. So to start it, you hit F6, and to stop it, you hit F6. So once it's open, I go back into Revit, I hit F6 on my keyboard, and you notice you don't hear any clicking. All I'm doing is dragging my mouse as if I'm just drawing and tracing it. And the auto clicker is doing the clicking. So this is sort of how I create topos if I don't have any other information, and I hope that's helpful for you guys. So definitely check out that blog post. So hope that was helpful. Now let me jump back on here. All right, so let's see. Hopefully I didn't miss anything else. I'm checking on the chats here. 2D Entourage to dress up the flat shaded elevations with minimal effort. All right, so well, I'm gonna run a little backwards on some of these. So ACAD Gatsu just mentioned Twinmotion. It's free. Download it before November. I have used Twinmotion. I haven't used it enough to give a huge review or what I would feel is a confident review in it. There's some pros and cons for sure, and it's free for until at least November, so definitely worth trying out. I personally have been using Lumio for 6 years now, and I absolutely love it. It just works. The product is wonderful. And for those of you that are students out there, if you didn't know this, this Lumio student license is 100% free, and that's you do get the entire library. There's just a very small watermark on the corner, and so again, I'm not affiliated with Lumio. I know the software and I believe in the software and I use it all the time. So if you go to lumio3d.com or lumio.com, you click I am a student, which I'll just post right now in here. You do get it as a student or a teacher, I guess, because I think you need an EDU or something like that. 100% free, which is awesome. So let's see. Somebody, Jeff Fry, you asked about dressing up the 2D Entourage to dress up flat shaded elevations with minimal effort. So there's a couple things you can do with that. So let me. I'm actually in the Stilted House project here, which you guys can see here. This is what I call the schematic design version. And you'll actually even notice in this 3D view that I'm using Revit Entourage, and I typically I'm mostly using this for me as a design tool to check scale, but I ended up leaving them on in the elevations and the 3D views because they do help give you a sense of the scale. And so if you want to use Revit Entourage, there's a couple things you can do. You can use the default Revit Entourage, which is what I'm doing here. And what I did is, you could see I actually made them black, and so they're silhouettes. These are the typical Entourage people. You can see if I zoom around, it's got the four faces or whatever it is. This is Florence, and this guy in here is our good buddy Alex. The one thing you'll notice that I did is I actually sunk them down. Oh, this is actually 3.5 inches. I usually don't go that far, but I'll usually shrink them down at least 1 inch so that we don't see that dumb base. Oh, it's 3.5 feet, sorry. So you don't see this weird base in any of your 3D images. So I shrink them down like a 1/2 inch or something just to get rid of the base. But what you'll notice is in my elevations now, so you can see there she is, but if I go to shaded view, you can see she's just a silhouette. And that's pretty helpful. And when you run that through Photo Sketcher and some of that post-processing, it actually pretty much gets the job done. You could download, there are some people who have made a flat Entourage for Revit. You could also just post-process it in like Photoshop and put it in there. But quickly I'll show you how I created that, how I made them shaded. And so if I go under, I believe, it's been a while since I've done it actually because it's just been set up. But I believe I did it in Object Styles. And so if I go under Manage and Object Styles, and I run down to Entourage, you'll notice Entourage actually has a material called People. And so if I click on that material, you can see what it is it's a shaded, it's a solid fill, and it's black. So if I wanted to do a bunch of pink people, actually I have a cool story about pink people, let me see. So if I want to do some pink people, oops. I have to change the shaded view too. Some pink people right here. You can see there's some pink people, and if you want to get rid of the outline, you can make their outline the same color as the Entourage itself. Let me go back to Entourage. Oops, under here. So I'm going to change the line color to that same pink. I don't even know if that was the same pink. I should probably make it the same pink. Let's do all the same pink. Okay. So I'm changing the global settings of it. Now you can see we have pink people, if you're into that thing. Actually, I had a project where I did a rendering and it looked pretty cool. I think for those of you who study modern architecture, by modern I mean like today architecture, and are maybe fans or maybe not fans of Bjork Ingels, you may have seen some of his stuff, but he has a few images that he would use like orange or pink people, and it looked kind of cool. So I tried sort of a similar idea in this project here. Let me see if I could find the finished boards for you guys. Okay. Somewhere in here there's pink people. Oh, I did yellow people. So here's one with yellow people. These are just Revit views. You can see these. Whoa. These guys are yellow here. Similar idea. Man, I don't like Adobe. If you guys are familiar with jumping between Adobe and Bluebeam, it's nuts. Here's another example. So all the people in here have like a pink or a yellow hue to them. So just kind of a cool way to change up the images a little bit. So I hope that was helpful, Jeff. Let's see. Frank asked if this presentation is being recorded. Yes, I believe YouTube live streams are available after the fact forever unless I decide to pull them down. And I plan on leaving this one up. So I think on my channel, if you subscribe, I believe you will have access to this live stream. So, okay, let me make sure I'm not losing anything. Wish I was a student again. Yes, Timothy, you do get some perks as a student. To be honest with you, if you a lot of these educational discounts do get expanded to teachers. So if you decide to commit some of your time to helping other students, I do believe you will be able to take advantage of some of those. As you'll notice, even this copy of Revit I'm using just on this computer is a student version because I do teach at University of Hartford, and I needed a version on this desktop quicker than I could get going. Let's see, another free option is Blender 3D. So ACAD is still talking about free options for rendering. I mean, honestly, if cost is the big driver, I would actually say just use Enscape. You can do $45 a month or something like that. And honestly, especially when it comes to interiors, the out of the box views you get from Enscape, yeah, the library is still building, but is unbeatable, especially for $45 a month. So that's my humble opinion. But let's see. Oh, Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy. Wow, I haven't seen you in a while, bud. This is a port wine. This is a 20-year vintage port wine. Red port. I believe it's grams, maybe. I don't remember. I just finished the bottle, though. That's why it's getting a little low. I'm a big port wine drinker. Let's see. Any other questions, guys? Ask some more questions. It looks like a lot of folks are talking about Lumion versus Twinmotion versus a lot of the other programs out there. I know I've done a ton of Lumion reviews on the blog. If you haven't checked them out, feel free to check them out. Again, I don't endorse. I'm not an affiliate or anything of Lumion. I just believe in the software. You can see my last blog post. I'm very honest about some of the things I don't like about the software. But I think maybe based on discussions that I've seen here and I've been hearing throughout Twitter and when these real-time engines come up, is maybe it's worth doing some sort of a showdown or like a comparison between them all. Just so you guys know, my personal favorites are I use Lumion almost on a daily basis and Enscape as well. And they're kind of for two different things. The reason I sort of started using Enscape was because getting into the VR goggles was in one click, super simple, fast. But lately I've been realizing the benefits of sort of being able to quickly create interior views and sort of jump in, especially when designing, be able to jump quickly into your design, go into white mode because they have a sweet white mode. If you didn't know this, it completely removes the materials and it has this white mode to it. And it's a nice quick way to see your design in scale and flip back and forth. And like I said, the lighting right out of the box is phenomenal. So definitely check all of that stuff out. Looks like everyone's extremely interested in that. Time breakdown between conceptual sketch, computer modeling. All right, so Christopher asked an interesting question, and so thanks, Chris. And so Chris's question is, what is the time breakdown between the sort of conceptual sketch, computer modeling, sketch development? So kind of what's the time breakdown between those 5 steps that I talked about in the making of video? And so it all depends, but I think actually in total the time it took me to get from what you saw in the video from 0 to what you saw in the video, I think it was actually only 13 to 14 hours total time, which I don't know, may seem like a lot, may not seem like a lot to you guys, I don't know, but it's not a very big project. As you saw, it's 2 rooms. So I probably spent a couple hours on sketching, probably only about a couple hours on modeling the mass and then exporting it, sketching over it, back and forth, and then a few hours. So I mean, honestly, the breakdown at this stage of the game is probably very similar. And believe it or not, the Lumion, the rendering part, is probably one of the depending on what level of detail you want to get into, it probably wasn't even the longest part of this process. The design piece was probably longer. The scene, if I pull up the scene here, as I showed in the making of video, it's not a very big scene, and Lumion makes it pretty easy to fill the scene. I probably spent more time picking out the perfect low-hanging trees and stuff in the scene and making that hillside look like the real hillside with grass and leaves and stuff. If you look here, let me get out of this effect here. There's a lot of rocks and tree and leaves and sort of. I probably spent way too much time making that look realistic, but I think it shows in the final rendering why I did that. But the building itself, as I showed in the making of, there's only a few materials. It's pretty quick. It all depends on how detailed you want to get. I even, on the inside here, when I made that interior shot looking out, I used a silhouette person, and then I just plopped these yoga mats in the corner. And so, I hope that helps a little bit. The total duration was, I think, 13 hours, if I remember correctly. So I hope that answers the question a little bit. Let's see. Just found you need to robust Revit material library. So Lieutenant Hamburger Dinkles, sweet YouTube name, by the way, asked about Revit materials library. So if you search through my YouTube channel as well as my blog, you'll see I actually go through I do show you how to set up materials, and also in volume 1, again, which the course it gets out tomorrow, there's an entire chapter on creating custom materials, where I walk through the process of downloading, creating bump maps, and so on and so forth, using Photoshop. I would highly suggest that you learn how to create your own custom materials. It's really not that hard. It doesn't take that long, and start building your own library. I used to, I think in the previous version of my presentation course, I did give out my material library. That I sort of took it back only because the thing was a mess. Like the naming was out of control. It went berserk, and it was also huge. So it made the download very big. But you do 3 or 4 projects, you download and save your own material libraries. In no time, you'll have an extremely robust. But as I've talked about in numerous courses and in classes, some of the ways I get custom materials is very simple. Textures.com is a great one. It's free for a certain amount of textures. If you want to pay, it's pretty cheap to get more textures or higher quality. But they have some great seamless textures. And then the good old Google. So, if you search brick material seamless on Google and go to images, you'll find tons of stuff. So, that's honestly where I get everything as far as textures are concerned. And there are some premium sites that have pre-made textures and stuff like that. But those are my 2 main places. That's where I built my entire library over the last, 5 to 10 years. Let's see. Whoa. You guys are rolling here. Awesome. I love it. Love it. Okay. Christopher and Jill Duggan asked about handling elevation views with near and far elements. I have a couple different videos actually on that on my YouTube channel and on the blog, and so I'll just post some of those. If you're using newer versions of Revit, you have depth queuing, which you can utilize, what's closer, what's further away, and that's helpful. Or you can manually do it by selecting and hiding, selecting and doing halftone and stuff like that. So let me post this video here. This is the new version using depth queuing, which I do dig into. Where's the channel? Here we go. So there's a video showing how I utilize depth queuing, and then I think there's one, I don't know, I'll have to find it. Here we go. And then this is the older one before depth queuing existed. Sorry, I'm clicking around line, guys. Okay. Good question, though. Great question. Let's see. Your last video created a volumetry using voidification capability. Let me see if I understand this. So Abraham was asking about, I think he was asking sort of about how I created the massing, or how I did the sort of mass piece of it. And so honestly, it depends on your project, what you're going to use, but a lot of projects, especially if they're going to be straight walls, straight boxes with maybe a shed roof, I honestly just go straight into in place. If you wanted to make something fully parametric, you could do it as a family, but just making quick in place extrusions and using the old school modeling tools in Revit is sufficient. So this guy right here, I think when I talked about the video, when I went through in the video, I think I created a box first and then put the shed roof on and then combined them and stuff like that. That was because I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with the roof. But if I was to model this again and I knew exactly what I was doing with the roof, I would just do something as simple as create the architecture component, model in place. You could call it a generic model or a mass. If you looked at the tutorial, you can see I actually started with generic model, flipped it to a wall so I could put doors in it, and then flipped it back and did some weird stuff. But for now, we'll start with generic model. I'm not going to name anything now. And so you just have your typical extrusion tools. So if I was to draw an extrusion, I'll just draw it along this plane here, just so we have it. I mean, it's as simple as extruding like you would in any other 3D program. You know, this is your profile. You click finish, and you've got yourself a mass. And then you can start using voids and doing whatever you want with it. So honestly, you keep it as rudimentary as possible. Like I said in the video, at this point in time, Revit is a design tool for us. So we want to make it easy and quick and simple, with the idea and the understanding that we may need to modify it later to make it something buildable or something we can make documents out of. So whatever makes sense. If it's starting to get free-flowing, obviously you have to go into conceptual massing. If you want it to be parametric, you could do it in the family editor or in the conceptual massing editor, and add parameters that you can flex it. But I mean, I'll always start right there. Just simple, quick, get you where you want. So I hope that was helpful. Abraham. Let me see. I'm trying to catch up with you guys. Sorry. David asked about material tags. It depends. I actually don't have any videos on keynotes, so maybe I'll have to do that at a later date. That's something that could probably be a good topic for when I revisit Volume 2, which has to do with documentation. So I run through the whole process of creating construction documents. I actually did not talk about keynotes in that, but that's a good chapter to probably add to the video series. So thanks for the feedback. Timothy's talking about my computer being fast. Thanks, Tim. Yeah. Actually, I'm running, what you're seeing on screen is a desktop. It's running it's a 1080 graphics card, so it's a GTX 1080. It's an i7. It's probably 2 years old, 32 gigs of RAM. I actually haven't really done any computer reviews in a while, so maybe I'll run through my computers on a blog post. That's a pretty good idea. People are always asking. Scott Spence just asked, a little off topic, but would you recommend Revit for doing construction details, or is it just stick with AutoCAD? 100% Revit. If you're going to use Revit, use it full out, and it's great for detailing. There's no reason why you can't do it in Revit. So definitely don't try the hybrid. If anyone out there has tried hybrid Revit and CAD, do not. You will know exactly why. Christopher So Christopher said maybe a better question is, how much time do you devote to the axe on the wall hiding behind you? So the axes, actually, I don't know if you can see them both. Let's see, can you see them both? Yeah, the axes. I used to spend a lot of time with the axes back there, but obviously having a 9-month-old child and working full-time as well as doing this blog stuff, not nearly as much time as I wanted to. The axe on the top there, the Fender Strat, for those of you out there who are guitarists, since you've asked the question, I might as well answer. And if I'm going to geek out on anything, it's going to be Revit and guitar. So that I've had for a very long time. I love that guitar. But recently, the Eastman down the bottom there, which is a jazz box. In the last year, I've gotten into jazz guitar. I started playing guitar in 3rd grade. I spent a great period of my life playing blues and rock, so pentatonic scale, for those of you familiar, major stuff. I got really good at that. I feel comfortable with that, but I never really dove into jazz and modes and diminished and all these crazy things. So it's kind of like relearning guitar again. So it's kind of fun. I learned a couple standards so far, and I'm really getting into it. So it's kind of like learning again. Unfortunately, definitely don't have as much time to play as I used to. That's for sure. So let's see. Also from Scotland, ditched AutoCAD. The roof. So Pieter asked about the roof in between the buildings. So there's a couple things that you could do. How to get out of here? So you could see this. This is actually a corrugated metal roof. Initially, I had a family. It was an array-based family, but it kept blowing up on me. I've used it many times, but for some reason I was trying to slice it and it blew up on me. So this, unfortunately, at the moment, still on this project, I do plan on changing it at some point, is actually just an in-place family. Again, at this early stage, we're just trying to get things out the door. Not out the door, but we want to get our design concepts on paper and sort of understand them. So this is actually, I shouldn't say extrusion, actually. It's a a roof by extrusion. So you can see it is a roof type. It's called the thin roof right now. It's corrugated metal. If I click edit profile, it's actually just a simple profile that I copied or arrayed, I should say, across here. And then you click finish, and it actually makes it makes the roof. And then I think I used a void to slice it. So there's lots of ways you can do this. You know, moving down the road, there's probably some things I would convert it to, but for the time being, it's just a roof by extrusion. So I know I wouldn't necessarily always suggest that, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do for the rendering. I wonder, how do you make the roof between buildings? Steven said, where does the collaboration of MEP fit into the process? At this stage in the game, you're kind of, especially on the project of this size, you're kind of just assuming MEP, or not assuming MEP. You have the general idea of what it's going to be, and then obviously, if engineers came on board, you start designing it. But we're in SD right now, so I have a general idea of what I might want to do for the MEP, and then we'll figure it out as we develop the project more. Talking about some 2D stuff. The standing seams, I have an entire video on how I do that. It's actually a curtain panel. I think I even talk about it in the making of video, so make sure you check out that one. This is a curtain panel that has empty system panel, and then I'm using mullions for the standing seam. So I'll actually post the video for you guys right here. Revit standing seam metal roof. Okay. Here is my video. I'm going to post this for you guys right now. So I did an entire video in depth on that. So how do you make custom Lumion objects? Custom Lumion objects are it all depends. So you can bring them in. So one of the nice things about Lumion is that you can actually bring in models from various modeling software. It brings in Collada files, FBX. I think it brings in 3D Max and SketchUp native files, something like that. So if you want really, really custom stuff that's beyond the library, dare I say, I know this is crazy just because I'm not a huge fan of the software. I know what it's there for and what it does, but SketchUp does still have a 3D warehouse that has a bunch of random crap that people built. Some of that is useful. You can actually just download the files from the warehouse and upload them into Lumion and change the materials. Turbo Squid files, you name it. So over time, I've built sort of a custom library based on like tons of different software. So whatever I can find the model for, or if I built it myself, you can also build Revit families and bring them in that way. So that's kind of how I built a custom library. Lumion itself has 2,000 plus objects to use. So let's see. Mr. Hamburger Dinkles asked about hotkeys. I do use hotkeys, and you'll notice when I do videos and tutorials, I try to explain what hotkeys I'm using. I use RP a lot for reference planes, RE for scale, MV for move. I mean, as much as possible. I do come from a CAD background many moons ago, so I was a CAD junkie cranking keys, so I understand the benefits of it. And whenever I'm teaching it, I also try and run through exactly what hotkeys I'm using as I do it. So definitely, if you haven't used hotkeys and you find yourself clicking through the ribbon all the time, definitely get used to some hotkeys. It'll save you tons of time. Let's see. And no, it doesn't only work if you have 3D Max. Well, yeah, it depends. If you have a 3D Max file, you have to export it. ACAD is talking about something with Lumion. So let's see. Yeah, I mean, Unreal and Blender and Twinmotion are all great software. I personally use Lumion, so I'm not knocking on any of the software. You guys feel free to use it. And the workflow, as far as I'm concerned, is probably pretty similar. I just prefer Lumion. So I know there's a ton of discussion in the chat about Twinmotion and Unreal and all that stuff. Let's see. What do you guys think? Any other questions? I'm trying to dig through to see. Thanks for all the comments in the chat, by the way. This is awesome. I really enjoy this. I think we had almost 100 people at one time, which is pretty cool. So, yeah. If you guys have any more questions, let me know. I'm just kind of hanging out here. We're talking a little bit about hotkeys on the chat, it looks like, which is pretty cool. Let's see. Did I miss anyone's question? Talking about the hybrid. Yes, definitely don't do the hybrid. Again, for those of you who I forgot who asked that question about doing detailing and stuff, I do have BIM After Dark Volume 2 is all about documentation. So I just run through some of the tips and tricks and ways that I've developed, or techniques I've developed over the years to speed up the process of making documentation. Because for those of you who are familiar with Revit, you'll know this. For those of you not, one of the things that it is very good at, believe it or not, is actually creating construction documents. Once you've modeled something a certain way, it can be extremely fast and quick to create construction documents, as well as modify and revise construction documents. So definitely check that out. All right, Pieter asked about how would I move from the schematic design process that you're seeing here to construction documents. And so that all depends. Maybe that could actually be a good idea as I move forward. Maybe I'll document that process. But the reality is probably what I would do is, this is a pretty basic building. What I would probably end up doing is converting this mass into walls and roofs. For building this size, I probably would actually model some of the structure in, so I'd use some beam systems, and maybe the roofs and stuff become skins, and so that I can cut some sections through it and start detailing it up. But what I would do is start developing that detail and working out the actual construction details. So turning these masses into components and going on from there. So that's actually a good idea. I might end up documenting that as this project moves forward. For those of you familiar with with residential design, even projects of this size can move pretty slow, believe it or not. So we'll see when that happens. But what do we got here? Steven asked about the steps to use Revit model in VR. Well, two things. First, Enscape is your best friend, as well as I believe Twinmotion does have a VR plugin, so there's a route there. But Enscape, part of the reason why I actually use Enscape is because of VR, and perfect timing. The Volume 1 video course, which again releases tomorrow, I actually have an entire bonus material in the complete package that goes through a case study and walks you through the exact process of creating going from Revit to VR. And so I walked through it's a healthcare project that we worked on, where we went through an entire floor, and you will get the entire one of the benefits is not only just the walking through the process of all the hardware I used, software I used, but also you will get the example model. And so let me see if I can pull this up for you guys. So you can see there's a bonus here. I actually go through all my Enscape settings. So here's my Enscape settings. Here's the PDF. So I run through, I talk about the story a little bit. I run through the software, the hardware, the setup that we use. And then I also have some test renderings for you to check out. So you can see some of the Enscape test renderings just to run through what's there. And then, of course, there's a video walking through the process and talking about the process of using VR. Some of the examples we had there, actually, we've used it for a couple different reasons. One is working with nurses to get them into the rooms to check it out. The other is actually working with authorities having jurisdiction. So our fire marshals are building inspectors to pre-inspect the spaces using VR, which is pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Let's see. Have you tried Dynamo programming, conceptual design, staging? Do you have Dynamo tutorials? There's like 4 or 5 questions about Dynamo. Yes. So I have a course actually called DIY Dynamo. You can go to DIYDynamo.com, as well as a few videos. If you check my YouTube channel, I have a 10-minute 10-minute getting started. But I have a great, for those of you getting started in Dynamo, I have a great tutorial series called DIYDynamo.com or DIY Dynamo. I just posted the link there. And it's, I think, 3 hours, something like that, or 3 weeks versus module. But it's 16 real world examples. And the whole idea with it is to get you to start in Dynamo. So the big thing with Dynamo is once you get started, you start realizing all the stuff you can do with it. So I've got some tutorials right now, just because of the summer 2019 launch or relaunch of Volume 1. I've kind of focused on that on the blog. But in the next couple months, I'll probably be pushing some Dynamo stuff again, just to get it out there. And I mean, I use it all the time. I just use it today 3 or 4 times. So once you start using it, you'll start reaping the benefits big time. So check that out for sure. All right, we're nearing an hour. And it looks like the questions are slowing down, but you guys are still here. So, any more questions before we wrap up for the night and we all go have some dinner or go to sleep? I guess depending on where you are in the world, or maybe wake up. I'm not really sure. Australia is what, 12 hours? I don't even know how far ahead it is. Steven just asked what comes out tomorrow. Perfect question. That's a great way to end. So BIM After Dark Volume 1 comes out tomorrow, and so I'll actually show you guys right now an advanced view of the sales page. So BIM After Dark Volume 1 is, and as long as you sign up for my email list, which you can do on the blog, probably some of you, many of you have, you will get a 20% off discount at midnight tonight. So keep an eye out for an email. So you definitely can utilize that. I also have payment plans, 4 payments, I think it is, to help it a little more accessible, and 3 packages. So I have a complete package, a video package, and a video plus package, where you get just the videos or videos and sample files and so on. But long story short, BIM After Dark Volume 1 is me walking through all of my presentation techniques. So how did I make my Revit view look like what you see here? How did I create renderings? How do I make custom materials? My Photoshop process. So I do a post-processing, as you saw in the making of video. I have like a 10-minute post-process, so it's quick, but it gets you to extremely awesome results. I walk through Lumio, and I walk through Enscape, and so on. So floor plans, sections, elevations, 3D views, you name it. I'll actually post a little, here's a little video clip for you guys there. So that comes out tomorrow. Again, it actually will come out at midnight, I think around 1 a.m. Eastern time. Everyone who's on my email list, if you're not on my email list, definitely head over to BIM After Dark or therevitKit.com, or bimafterdark.com/volume1, which I'll post right now, and you'll be on the list, and you'll you just click right here, and you guys will get the notification first, as well as the 20% discount. So let me post that here. And I also wanted to post the little promo video because I'm pretty proud of it. I thought it came out pretty nice of BIM After Dark. So again, it's all based on presentation techniques. So it's all about making your BIM sexy. So taking these ugly views, these nasty views, and making them look better. Look at that. I'm live right now. Go figure. Okay. So here's a little video here. And before I forget, some of you tweeted. I did a Twitter contest. I'm actually gonna postpone the drawing until tonight, because I want you guys who are here, if you weren't weren't on my email list or didn't know about it, or maybe weren't on Twitter or something like that. There were a few people that actually emailed me some of their examples. What I was asking you to do is email me examples of your Revit presentations, whether you think they're good or bad. Bad is even better, and say you can't wait to upgrade them. So there's a little link you'll see if you go to my Twitter. So just at the Revit Kid, and I'm going to take all those entries. For those of you who did submit them, thank you so much. I know it takes a little bit of courage to submit what you think is not necessarily the greatest looking Revit views or renderings, and admit that maybe you want to upgrade your presentation skills. I'm going to take all those and I'll send out an email later tonight. Maybe in, I don't know, 2 hours, something like that. I'll do a drawing, pick someone at random, and that person will actually win Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3 complete packages 100% free. So awesome. I'm going to do that drawing before the cart opens. So if you want to tweet at me at the Revit Kid and just say, hey, here's my ugly stuff, or send me an email, and because I like to see it, and I like to see before and afters. I want you to take something away from this course. So definitely tweet at me at that. Volume 1 again is out at 1 a.m. or 12 a.m. Let's see. I'm just reading a few more comments before I head out. Again, thanks everyone for joining. Brian, the Revit Kid rocks. Thanks. As always, feel free to tweet at me, send me an email, or so on. I think I'm pretty accessible on Facebook as well. If you want to join the Facebook page, I think we actually just rolled over 4,000 likes, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it. Please check out Volume 1. I'm really proud of it. It goes on sale again at midnight tomorrow. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this live happy hour. I really did myself. And have an awesome night.